Welcome to Book Lounge by Libby. I'm Joe, and I'm so happy you're here. We'll be back to our 2 episodes a week at the end of September with season 4. But in the meantime, enjoy our 3-ish episodes per month. Today, I was inspired by a podcast I love, Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet. Check it out, link in the description. It's so much fun, where 2 siblings pull reviews of different things themed by the week. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're insane. And we did the same thing today. So we pulled reviews, both good and bad, of books we have big feelings about one way or another. And we will be sharing them with you. To join me on this journey is the wonderful Meara. Welcome back. Hello.
Howdy. I'm so excited to be here and to be doing this. This was fun.
I have had this in like the back of my brain for forever. And I was just like, I just need the right voice to come do this with me. And Meara, you're the one. It's the hateration and the holleration in this dancery.
One of my favorite things is as soon as I read, like, if my friend and I both read a book, we'll then just like go through and I'll like read out loud all of the like most insane reviews. This is like one of my favorite hobbies.
I didn't even know that. And now it's like perfectly matched. So that is generally, what's your relationship to book reviews?
I take them with a grain of salt. There's the whole rule of thumb that like, if someone's reviewing something, they either really loved it or they really hated it. For the most part, I think that's like not as true with books because there's so many platforms for it. So many of us get advanced copies that a lot of people have stipulations of you have to post some sort of review. So I will say there are honest reviewers out there. It's a little different than like movie, restaurant, where 100% of the time you either really love it, really hate it, or they offered a discount. Exactly.
Books might have a little more nuance.
But I will say, one of my favorite things to do is if I'm like partway through a book and I'm feeling some type of way, I'm like, I don't know, I feel like I'm only feeling this book like a 3-star. I'll go to like Storygraph, I'll open up the 3-star reviews, and if they're saying the same complaints that I'm already feeling, I'm like, oh, okay.
Ooh, like it's your right. It's your right to go and done.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, this person's feeling how I'm feeling, and it didn't get any better for them.
Do you temper your expectations and finish it? Or is that sometimes one of those where you're like, oh, DNF?
It depends. I think if the reviews are like, this just like never went anywhere, or like it was fine but it didn't pick up, I'll be like, ooh, okay, like this might make me into a slump. But if they're like, oh my God, and then the end, I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta stick with it. I gotta lock in.
That's fair. When do you decide to leave a written review or star rating?
I really wish that I was better about leaving reviews, at least star ratings, you know? I like, because I'll go back and look through my Storygraph and I'm like, wow, I wish I could remember how I felt about this book. Like, at the very least that. If I really loved a book, I tend to rate it 5 stars.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I try to be decent about it. Written reviews are harder for me because like a lot of time I'm just like moving and grooving and I'm like, boop, 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 done.
Absolutely.
Like, move on to the next. But I'm trying to get better about it. I think sometimes, especially like on Goodreads, reviews are very precious where people are like very thoughtful and mindful and they write a whole lot out. As we both saw.
Because today for the first time I used both Goodreads and Storygraph. And the difference is wild, like night and day. And I will say, I get what y'all been talking about with Storygraph.
Are you a Storygraph convert now?
I think so. To be fair, I don't really use of course I had made an account and then never used it for Storygraph because I was going to be like, oh, I'll just dive in with this to refresh my journey of like tracking my reading. But I'm a physical tracker first, foremost, and only. So I write down every book that I finish.
Wow.
But on the Goodreads end of things, I hit the point in the last few years where I was very much like, oh, I want to see that number at the end of the year. I don't set a number. I don't have a goal, but I want to see them go you did this and have like that, not even point of pride, but just like, okay, if I want to go and look back, I can have a quick count right there. And then I didn't realize you had to put dates in. And so, so it was a whole mess for a few years.
It's so annoying.
Also, like if I said I read it, it just put it in the year that I made that happen. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Wait.
But when I mark something as read, I do not star it and I do not write a review. It just goes into like the red shelf. The only time I put stars on it is when it is a 5-star. Like,
Okay.
and like 5-star, I'm going to talk about it to everyone and I'll think about it constantly. So like When the Wolf Comes Home, which is one of the books I looked up today. When I read that last year, it really stuck with me. I loved it. I know it's divisive for some people. I think you just didn't get it. Whatever. Uh, so I think that one has like a 5-star. Same thing with those other books that like, whether I think it's a perfect book or not, that's not what I'm reviewing. The vibes for me were 5 stars.
Yeah.
So it's very rare that that even happens, but it's just more the like bookkeeping rather than.
Yeah. I'm kind of trying to use like the letterboxed method when I'm writing my book reviews lately, where it's just like, here's just like a quick snappy line. Like, I don't need to get too much into it, but just let me like either tell someone who's seeing this, just like a little vibe check,
Yes.
or like give myself a reference point. So that's kind of what I've been trying to work on lately.
Yeah. I could see myself eventually doing like the letterbox, like how I hold myself to letterbox to just give an accurate star rating. I don't ever write anything, but I just do the like, that was definitely 3.5. I had a good
Yeah.
time, but if the company I was with wasn't there, meh, like, or the review, if I had to write a review, I'd be like, boyfriend made this movie better, 4 stars. Like,
That's really funny.
yeah, that's kind of how it works for me. So, um, so you read reviews of books you're reading when you find yourself hitting a slump. Yeah.
Yes. I
You
tend to not read them before.
Okay, so you don't read them before or don't really read them before. Do you ever look them up after?
I will. Usually the same method where it's like, I felt like this was a 2. Let me go look at the 2-star reviews. And I'm like, yes, they are eating this up. Like,
Okay.
like they're
It's when you've
cooking in
got
these reviews.
it's
A
when you've
feeling
got
already.
big feelings either way. Like, this is
Yeah.
so good, I want to hear what other people are saying about it that I thought, or ooh, I hate this. Am I the only one?
Yeah. And sometimes if I'm preparing to like review a book online, like on TikTok or whatever, I will
Yes.
go look at reviews and just kind of like almost like facilitate like a little book club for myself. I'm like, okay, are there any criticisms or opinions or perspectives that I missed in my reading of it that I should take into consideration before I like talk about this book online? And that helps.
Is there anything I want to call out? Like, I do that too. So the only time I tend to go to Goodreads, like to look at reviews generally, is like you. If I'm like, everyone tells me how much they love this book, I think I hated it. I can't be the only one who hated it. And then I go look and I'm like, okay, I wasn't the only one, but I am in the minority, or it is a decent split, or, whatever. Or the same thing. Sometimes when I'm prepping episodes, if it's been a while since I read the book, it's nice to have just like a general update from the community as a whole. Because
Yeah.
the other thing is, I'm researching guests before they come on, but I'm not necessarily researching every book. So I could have read it and then there could have been terrible news. And, I don't want to talk about terrible news and I don't want to
Right.
make people feel any sort of way. So sometimes it's a good way to just kind of like temp check. How do we feel about this book? Do
Yeah.
all of the reviews say, uh-oh, look out for this?
Yeah. No, that's a really good way to handle that too. Man, there was something else that I was thinking about reviews. Oh, I will say, if I'm like thinking about like buying a book, I will look it up. And if the score, like the average rating is above like, if it's above a 3.5, I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
fine. That's great.
I was
If
going to
it's a,
say 3.64.
if
that's
it's
that's
like,
kind of the threshold.
if it's 3 to 3.5, then I
Mhm.
might like, I'll click a couple 5-star reviews. I'll click a
Yeah.
couple 1-star reviews and just be like, okay, like, where's the difference here? Usually if it's under 3, I'm like, ooh, that's not good. And I'll put it back on the shelf.
It's so like, it won't stop me from borrowing it. I'll still
Right.
read that book. I might not buy it. And I'm happy to be proved wrong to then go back to my bookstore later and be like, should have bought you then. Like,
Yeah.
totally fine with that. But yeah, it's also so wild to see the reaction on Storygraph where ratings seem to be higher. Now, I know the sample pool is still a little smaller,
Yeah.
but it's so interesting to see the difference. And not that Storygraph is free from critique. I think it's a lot of thoughtful conversations around books. Like, one of my all-time favorite books is Beloved. And Brie and I talked about this a little bit recently because I mentioned that you and I were going to be recording this episode. And there are just some books that you cannot look up reviews of. Like, there are some books I didn't include because all of the reviews were like 14-page thesis papers on the book. And I didn't want to like do a disservice to the reviewer and be like, hey, y'all, I'm not reading all of this, but like I
Yeah.
liked some of your points. But also on the flip side, there were plenty of times that there were really long reviews like that were just kind of full of hate or were misogynistic or were racist or were any amount of like, I didn't get this. I don't know why it's required reading. I don't think anyone should ever have to read. I don't think anyone should ever read that. Like so much vitriol. And
Yeah.
I'm like, why give it that energy? Why give it that time of day? You didn't have to read it.
Right.
Like,
You could put it down.
I'm a firm believer in that, like, there's a lid for every pot. Like that book is for someone. It doesn't have to be for you.
Yeah.
And there are some that we'll get into in some of my reviews that are just like, I don't think I understood the format. And I'm like, well, you didn't have to leave the review. It wasn't for you, but okay. But yeah, so it's so wild to me that Goodreads especially will just be like cesspool depths of hell.
I think that Goodreads is big into haterade.
And no shade to Goodreads. I don't know enough, and like I don't think they foster a specific community. I don't think there's much by way of their record or their like prompting methods anyway. Like I think the people who are there do what they want.
I think because the reviews are like able to be engaged with.
Yeah, the whole
it's the same
comment cycle, and
It's the same as other social media where like inflammatory things are more likely to get engagement. So I think that's part of it. Like it's just like an algorithmic reward to be a hater.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. And I don't think I've ever clicked into a comment thread on a Goodreads review because I'm like, there's more. if it even presented like the first one to be like this comment and 59 more, maybe I would have deep dove. But anyway, it's just a little bit on that. And someone left a wonderful comment on the video with Bree for Summerween when we were talking about reviews, and they just kind of made the point of like, when leaving a review, I think of what kind of feedback would I want to receive as an author, especially when it's an arc. Like, this took me out of the moment. This pacing felt off in this specific way, or like what was good here felt a little like askew there. I think that was a thoughtful way to think of it. Of like, I know I would approach it as the like, if you like books like this, if you want an adventure like that, like if you want to feel these emotions and feelings, you're in the right place. But yeah.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, I thought it was nice. So shout out to you, dear commenter. Thank you. And to all of you watching and listening, please leave comments. If you're on the Libby App YouTube channel, you can comment down below. Or if you are on Spotify, you can also comment on podcast episodes there. Isn't that fun and magical? So today, it's going to be a little different than things we've done before. Let's dive in. My first book, as I mentioned, is When the Wolf Comes Home. It's by Nat Cassidy. This is one of my favorite reads of last year. I don't know why. It just sat with me. And I have this 1-star review here that was left in February of 2026. Now let's start with the positive. The afterword is a masterpiece. By far the best part of this book. In my humble opinion, it's the only 10 pages worth reading out of the 420. Now to the story itself. This is, without a doubt, the worst book I've read this year, and possibly among the top 5 worst books I've ever read. I saw almost all my Goodreads friends giving it 5 stars, and I honestly wondered if we were reading the same book. First of all, the title is completely misleading. It should have been called Daddy Issues, though that wouldn't quite work for a horror novel, would it? I think it would. Yet, that's exactly what this book is about. The protagonist's unresolved issues with her father, stretched across 400 plus pages. Speaking of the protagonist, Jess is probably the most pathetic and unlikable character I've ever encountered. We get it. Your dad wasn't there for you. He didn't love you. He was absent your whole life. Stop whining about it every time you open your mouth. Try therapy. No shame in that. Most of us have unresolved family stuff. That was in parentheses. And move on with your life. The plot, absolutely ridiculous. I won't go into spoilers, but cartoons? Really? If you're expecting a book about werewolves, as the title and cover clearly suggest, prepare for major disappointment. And finally, if I had to read the word kiddo one more fucking time, I would have ripped my eyes out. End of review.
They had so many feelings.
They had so many feelings. Also, a pretty strong, like, case of bookending because the cartoon segment, it's in like the first 3 chapters.
Oh.
So, like, I don't know. I'm just over here like, okay, maybe. I think this is like people who like horror movies versus people who like gore and slasher movies. They're 2 different things. So much of horror, you're going to find both of them in the same section at the movie store and the bookstore.
Yeah.
But horror's about grief. This is a perfect place to talk about your daddy issues.
I have a question for you.
Please.
They said that the cover and the title make you think it's about werewolves, but it's not?
So the title is When the Wolf Comes Home. The cover is like a wolf head kind of silhouette, like windows and things. It's a bit on the abstract end. I thought of the Mountain Goats song, so I never, God, a hipster moment. I never thought in terms of like, oh, this is a werewolf book, because I'm not big into werewolf books, so I probably wouldn't have picked it up. But there is a werewolf character, or I can't say too much without spoiling it, but like there is a werewolf. That is the impetus. That is the spark at the beginning to get us running on our journey here. It just isn't a traditional werewolf story.
Interesting.
But like, I don't think the cover is like, here's a full moon and a man ripping his shirt open because he's becoming a wolf.
Yeah, even the description, like the only mention of a wolf is, and when the wolf finally comes home, no one will be spared.
Exactly,
So
which I think that writing leans more into this is about daddy issues than this is about a werewolf. Like,
yeah, I'm
I
like,
think that
clearly
to me
the
says
wolf
more
is a
abusive
metaphor.
parent. Thank you. So I want to immediately follow it up with a positive. So this is a 5-star review from Goodreads. It was from October 2025. I just wanted to read a scary werewolf story for Halloween, but I got an unpredictably wild supernatural gore festival instead that somehow managed to hit emotionally. It also kind of read like a freaky and R-rated episode of The X-Files. At least there was an FBI agent who clearly wished he was Fox Mulder. Overall, wow. And that was also tagged as Faves 2024-2025, Home Library, and Read in English. And the other 5-star review I have is from Storygraph. It's Reading in the Black Lagoons review, 5 stars. Hell of a way to be introduced to Nat Cassidy.
Okay.
But there's also another 1-star review on Storygraph that just says, not about werewolves. So what can you do? I mean,
yeah,
you can't please everyone. I liked that one to start from because it's just kind of silly. Like, I appreciate the first reviewer's 1-star review to be like, this is what happens when you want one very specific thing, but you didn't really get any details out of it, because if you read positive reviews of it and you read the description, nothing really said this is a werewolf story.
Yeah.
And you were mad about that. And that's fair, but I think you could have verified that if it was a truly a werewolf story or not.
And I think in a situation like that, I would leave no stars. Like, I would leave the review, not a werewolf story, but I wouldn't leave any stars because that's my bad.
I also feel like if I hated a book, like if everything pissed me off about a book to the part that I was saying I was going to rip my own eyes out, I probably would have stopped before then. So this is another great moment to remind you, you're allowed to DNF books.
I will tell you, though, there is a book that I read.
Yeah.
You know what? I am about to eat my own words. There's a book
your own words
that I read at the end of last year, and I hated it. I hated it so much. Like, I have stopped people in a bookstore and been like, don't buy that book. It was really bad. Like, I can give you a different, like, tell you something else to buy. But like literally like
Yeah.
strangers, I'm like, don't get this book. And I just went and looked up my review for it and I gave it 2 stars. And my review was just, where were the ghosts? But in my defense, this book is about someone who sees ghosts. So like, there should have been more ghosts.
Okay, fair. But you know what? You also gave it 2 stars. And I think that kind of like letterboxed review approach of like, where were the ghosts? I think that's totally fair. You didn't condemn it. You didn't like fully can it. You were just like,
It was not
yeah,
good.
was not good. What's your first book for us?
Okay. So my first book is The Compound by Aisling Rawl. It's been talked about a lot in the last few months because of Love Island happening. And I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4.75 stars. I ate it up. I read it in a day.
Same.
The reviews are all over the place. So the first one I have is from Tosh Reads Too Many Books on Storygraph, who gave it 4 stars. And honestly, the very first sentence cracks me up because remember, they gave it 4 stars. Good rating.
Yeah.
This is definitely not a book I would recommend to anyone.
4 stars. Wouldn't recommend.
Wouldn't recommend.
Okay.
Continues with, the characters are terrible and nothing really happens. Yet I really enjoyed it. It's like binging on a reality show that has sinister undercurrents. I can't explain why I liked it, but I did.
This is where you need the like Google search result. I think you meant missed the point.
It was
Okay.
like cracking me up where they're just like just angry that they like it.
Which is probably how they'd feel if they started watching Love Island. Like
You know
angry
that
that they
meme?
loved it.
That meme of the like claymation penguin who looks angry, but it's like holding a like Valentine.
Yep.
That's how that review
Pingu.
feels to me.
Absolutely. It totally feels like that. And I'm with you. I loved The Compound. I know in my heart and in my mind it was 5 stars. I don't know if it was given like a public 5 stars, but another incredible book because, right, there's just something about it that makes you go, what?
Yeah. Okay. Next on my list, we have a 2-star review from Claire Rafis on Goodreads. Big Brother literally was more dystopian than this. Like, they had outdoor access 24/7, could sing and take naps. This author would be gagged by US Big Brother. The main character was a psychopathic, in parentheses, my interpretation, bisexual, and I did appreciate that. Read if you like Love Island, but not Big Brother. I'm like, okay, we got a Big Brother fan on our hands.
Hell yeah, queen. Okay. Again, I'm just over here like, sometimes we read books, but I don't think we always comprehend.
Yeah. I was just like, okay, heard. I think
Heard.
maybe you should have spent that time watching Big Brother.
Yes, chef. Put down the book, pick up the remote, watch Big Brother if that's what you needed.
And then my last review, it's from Tatum, 3.5 stars on Goodreads. Simply, you were good. I'm waiting for you to be great.
You know what? I like that.
I love, that's the perfect little quote for 3.5 stars.
Absolutely the perfect quote for 3.5 stars because, as I said, I go on vibes. That like any book could be a 3.5 to a 4.5 coming out of me just because it was like, you know what? I had a good time. Otherwise, like if at any, like I wouldn't even review it because if I'm thinking it's a 2.5, I probably DNF'd it. Like if it's a 2.5 or lower, or even like a 3 or lower, I probably would have DNF'd it. And so to me, to look at that and be like, okay, that's just objective. All right.
Yeah. That was it.
I'm into it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Meara, I don't know if you know this, but I love manga.
I was like, there's so many things you could be about to say right now.
Yeah, but is that a surprise to you? I don't think so. So I pulled a handful of reviews from 3 of my favorite series, the Sailor Moon series by Naoko Takeuchi, Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle by Clamp, and Pokemon Adventures, because, I figured they'd all give me some good fodder to work with. So this first review is a 4-star review of Sailor Moon. Technically, these are all of volume 1 because, multi-book series, but a lot of them people have used the first book to give their entire review. Anyway, this is from Joe, just J-O. I'll admit, I went into this first book of the series with average expectations, but I have been rather pleasantly surprised. Sailor Moon, for me, is like eating a vanilla cream cupcake. The story was light and kind of fluffy, but the powers the girls had made me enjoy it more. It was like the icing on the cake. I mean, what girl wouldn't want to wake up finding she had those kind of powers? I didn't think Sailor Moon was in no way representing a 14-year-old. I mean, she didn't look or even act like one. I would have been happier if she was actually a couple years older. However, I haven't let that ruin the overall experience for me. I enjoyed how the author kind of played around with space and time, and there were pretty good explanations for everything that was happening. I loved the power of the girls, friendship, and the romance that seemed to be blossoming. The last thing was the artwork. It was beautiful. With any manga, the artwork is important to me, and this one didn't let me down. I'm looking forward to read the next installment. I think great review, had some thoughtful critiques in there. It's also nice to just see I wish they would have been older because I think manga from the 90s, there's quite a few that really would have benefited if the characters were older.
A very fair point.
And that's all we can really say on that. This next one is from Star Bubbles. Star Bubbles gave it 5 stars. November 2024. Oh, I didn't mention. The last one was from 2020. So somehow I managed to also find very current reviews of it, which is okay. I got all 11 Sailor Moon books in the mail on the 14th, and when I was finally able to get around to reading them, I devoured them. I loved every moment of every single book. It was just as good, if not better, than the anime. Though every time I saw "In the name of the moon, you're punished," I read it as "On behalf of the moon, I will punish you." Ah, good old Sailor Moon. Plus, the theme song is one of my all-time favorite theme songs. Now, if they could coordinate playing the theme song when you open the book, I think then it would then become perfect. Again, love the innovation. Very thoughtful. But March 2020, lots of bad things were happening. Sailor Moon got 2.5 stars on March 25th. I'm sorry. This was just so young. I'm sure I would have absolutely loved this if I read it when I was 10. But as a 23-year-old woman with no nostalgia for the series, this was incredibly young, repetitive, and honestly, just boring.
Okay.
So, I mean, we got a little bit of everything. The reviews kind of continue on. This one's from Storygraph, 3 stars. My summary: Sailor Moon realizes with her cat Luna that she has powers and meets the other Sailor Scouts who also have powers, and they work together to try to get the Silver Crystal. Tuxedo Mask lurks. My musings: happy to be reading a classic and the story of Sailor Moon, but I find her annoying with being lazy, wanting to have fun, freaking out, etc. Which I laugh at because, again, it's the point? You might have missed it.
Yeah.
You might have missed it. But yeah, and then there's a 1 star because, Thomas, January 2021, he thought it was a simply awful piece of storytelling. Even worse, because of the way the confusion of images assaults your eyes, it gets a while to even recognize the terrible story. The artwork is singular enough to almost be called iconic. Crazy-looking teenage girls dressed in pseudo-sailor outfits / school uniforms with skirts invariably blowing up above their waists. It's not just the character art that grates, though. The amount going on in each frame and between each frame is just impossible to take in. Every corner of the page is decorated. There's always too much going on. We open with a plot that repeats itself over the first few volumes. Sailor Moon discovers her powers and battles against a villain. The sudden battle scenes are the opposite. Bright flashes and empty frame. Impossible to know what happened and how the enemy has been defeated. We then proceed to meet each of the sailors and get more and more bored because we can't distinguish between the 4 girls except by their hairstyle. There's a statement in there somewhere. Most frustratingly, the main character is deliberately dumb and naive, although that changes as the plot expands and grows more serious, making the whole thing just irritating to read. What it adds up to is a flowery Power Rangers that is meant to be girly or appeal to girls, but I couldn't pinpoint it in what positive way that was. Each of the four sailors have certain elemental powers. There's a group of dark enemies from another dimension, blah, blah, blah. While I initially had no interest at all, the manga does grow into its painful narrative and seems to want to develop and head in more interesting directions. The romantic interest adds a sensuous element to the artwork and adds maturity to Sailor Moon's character, while the second long story arc attempts to create an aesthetic and a mythology which is more original and unique to the series. I can't say for certain whether or not Takeuchi is successful because I gave up after volume 4. Certainly, there are plenty of people who think the series is a success because it's hugely popular. I can't fathom why. Sure, it's lighthearted and humorous. Yeah, groups of teenagers with unexpected superpowers saving the world from bad guys without motives is always popular. And the artwork, whether you love it or loathe it, is certainly eye-catching and memorable. But all that doesn't excuse the clunky storytelling and the lack of any characterization. Some of the time, I just didn't know who was who or who was blasting who with which superpower. More tellingly, I really didn't care either one. Typo. And I'm including that for Thomas.
So
basically,
does Thomas know he could have stopped reading?
Right? He could have stopped at any point. Like, I think he spent as much time writing that as he spent reading 4 volumes. Also, like, I get it. You start a new format. This could be going into manga, having never read manga before. This could just be going into a graphic novel after being mainly a book reader. Yeah, it's going to be different. But like...
Just be like, oh, this isn't what I like. I don't like the visual styling.
Right.
Huge for a manga. Like, sorry, you're looking at something that is a visual medium, and you're going to be like, I hated how it looked visually.
Correct. It's crazy to me to be like, I hated the visual styling because there was too much going on. And then to also say, I couldn't tell who was who. You could only tell by their hairstyles. Yep. And that would be character design, my friend. I don't claim him as a friend. Anyway, let me hand the reins back over to you, Meara. What do you have for us before I look at some other manga?
Okay. So when I was picking books for this, I was like looking at some of my favorite books, and I was like, I don't know, I just like feel a certain way about some of my favorite books. And like, if people haven't read them, like these reviews might not hit as much for them. So I was like, you know what I love? I love The Hunger Games, and I bet there's good reviews. But then I was like, you know what's better than looking at reviews for The Hunger Games? Looking at reviews for Mockingjay, because this means these people kept reading.
They got all the way to the end.
They got all the way through the core trilogy.
Yes.
So I picked out some reviews for this. And these are mostly pretty old, like from like OG Hunger Games days. Okay. So Sean Bars gave it 1 star on Goodreads. Here's 7 reasons why this trilogy sucks. 1, Katniss has the personality of a vegetable. 2, Peeta is a needy little baker boy. I'll never get over how the author can justify his camouflage techniques born as a result from his cake decorating experience, with an exceptionally long ellipses. I also want you to know that there were GIFs between every single one of these because this review was made in like 2012.
Oh, still painful, and they still do it today.
All right, 3, the world is completely unacceptable and unbelievable. No collective nation would be so morally depraved as to watch the murder of children for entertainment. I cannot accept this idea. 4, this book did not make me think, as everything is on the surface. There is nothing beyond the story. It is basic and thrown in your face. 5, the writing is atrocious. 6, Collins self-plagiarizes herself in the second book. And at this point, he included, like, not quotes from the books. It was just like, this conversation went like this conversation went like this. And it's basically Katniss and Peeta being like, we have to live. And I'm like, yeah.
Does he not understand what a callback is, or a reference, or refreshing the audience?
Right. We're not like self-plagiarizing. We're just once again in the Hunger Games.
A book in the series talking about a different book in the series. Not plagiarism.
I was like, that's crazy. And then, okay, here goes number 7. The whole series is a combination of cheap thrills in which the last book is a complete mess. I hate this series so much. I will never understand its popularity. It is just terrible on every level. I've included links to reviews of the first 2 books as I explain my summary here. I honestly couldn't be bothered to write a full review of this. It didn't deserve it. It was such a mess.
Brother, I think you wrote a full review.
Wrote a full review. Also, I'm like, I hope you've eaten your words. I hope you have grown up and eaten your words.
No, men don't do that.
That's so fair.
No,
That's so fair.
Who said that? James. Honestly, I keep thinking with all the conversations happening lately around satire, and maybe people don't always understand what satire or social commentary or, like, I don't think people know as much as they think they know sometimes.
Yeah. Like, I think that maybe some of these complaints could apply to Sunrise on the Reaping, like
Sure.
with the like theme being like so blatant and heavy-handed. Like that is complaint that I
Yes.
had about it. But like I don't really see that in Mockingjay.
When you look at the original trilogy and you think like it blew up and was successful because initially the kids who were the intended audience didn't necessarily understand the broader social message, and then eventually gained the emotional intelligence and whatnot. But like also it put it in front of so many more people. It put it in front of teachers and parents and like all of these places for other people to pick it up and go, oh, I see what you're doing here. And then the
Yeah.
movies happen. And then then the point can be hammered home differently because, I don't know. I don't know. I never quite know what to.
Okay. This next review gave me a big laugh when I got to the end of their review. Okay. This is from
Can't wait.
Andy. They gave the book 1 star on Goodreads. And they said, DNF 55%. What the hell was it? I couldn't drag myself to read more. I didn't quite frankly, didn't like anybody, except maybe Gail.
Oof. Oof.
I was like, oh my God.
DNF 55% final book. I love Gail.
I'm like, oh, I can tell where you DNF'd before. Like, I can tell what you didn't get to in this story. That killed me.
I want to find that person and be like, hey, baby girl, could we pick this book up and just finish it and maybe amend this review?
Yeah.
Just see how you feel. I don't know, after like the 85% mark, just for me.
Yeah.
Also to get to the 3rd book in a trilogy and give up.
Yeah.
If it's not for you, don't you usually know beforehand?
That's why I picked Mockingjay, because I was
it's like a genuine question. Because like, I don't know, I feel like
why did you
if I start a series and I go, I don't know if this is for me, I'm not going to test the waters with the second one. Or the second one is where I'm giving up if I made it through the first. Like,
I'd love to be like, you know what? That was
if it's a trilogy,
fine
especially
first book. I'm just going to consider this a standalone, and I'm not going to go further from here. I love to do that.
I love to do that. And I guess I should specify like trilogy. I can't believe stopping in the 3rd one. If it's just a series and you don't know how many are left, that's fair. And also if you're like, oh, this is a 5-book series, whatever.
They were like 80% through the entire trilogy at this point.
At this point, you are almost just finish it.
It's not a long book.
Mm-mm.
It's like, what, 350 pages?
Right. I'm like, it's like an 8-hour audiobook max. Like, and that's off the top of my head. I don't even, like.
Yeah.
Crazy.
All right. Last review. This is from Jennifer Howell. She gave it 5 stars on Goodreads in August of 2010. Her review is, my review coming soon. Still need some time to digest everything. And it's been 16 years and Jennifer is still chewing on it.
Oh my God, Meara, that's perfect. I love that. It's so true though. How do you feel about when people, I think that's one thing because Jennifer finished it.
Yeah.
And she left her star rating. She just didn't write her review. How do you feel when people put reviews down for books they haven't read yet?
Oh, I hate that.
Okay.
Every app has a want to read list.
Everyone.
Put it there. Why are we leaving a review when we haven't read it?
Why are you leaving a 5-star review on a book you know nothing about?
My hot take, ban them. Ban them.
Banned from platform.
Not allowed.
Goodreads,
like-
get me a button.
At that point, it just feels like a bot or like they're like review, not
Right.
review. What's the opposite of review bombing? I mean, like it could be, they do review
Yeah,
bomb for
they
that
do
too.
review bomb, yeah.
But like, it feels like that. Like, it's just like, well, I just want to give this 5 stars because I'm interested or I support this author or whatever, even though I haven't actually put the effort into finding out how much it is.
And like, I have my favorites. I have never once thought about doing that.
Never once.
I don't know. This is a 5-star review from Keel Anna of Subasa
Wait, what's the book?
Of Subasa Reservoir Chronicle. You're good.
I was like,
So-
wait.
Subasa is by the artist group Clamp. They have done so many of my favorites. Subasa, Holic, Card Captors, Magic Knight Ray Earth, which apparently is getting a new anime soon. All of these things. Chobits, if you know it. Endless, beautiful art styles. So many good things. But this one stood out to me. It's a 5-star review. I'd give credit to Clamp for starting off the multiverse fad long before the MCU. Highly entertaining fantasy drama series with many unique twists, fun moments, and harsh obstacles for the characters to go through. I wanted to call that out because, yeah, they did it way before the MCU was trying to make Tsubasa specifically takes all of their properties, all of their characters, and puts a group of adventurers traveling into different dimensions. And they have cameos with different characters, with different, and like, it's not it's in a fan servicey way in the sense of like, oh, that character I love is here. But it is not in the sense of like, oh, we're picking up a random episode of this one thing. They might just be in the background shot of a world they're in. They could be someone, but they have like a different soul. So it's not the same character. The adventurers run into themselves because they're different versions of themselves. So anything's possible. It's also a little confusing if you don't know, what you're getting into. But I also have this 4-star review from Lois. It's from 2015. Okay, I plowed through all 28 volumes of this initially in an effort to make sense of Holic, which eventually it sort of did. That Holic was a companion novel or companion manga that they kind of went back and forth a little bit. Anyway, what I'm supposed to use to make sense of Tsubasa, I don't know. Well, Wikipedia, I suppose. But even it only becomes comprehensible after one has read the thing maybe twice. I had actually, as usual, started with the anime, but it does not go all the way to the end of the tale, and it skips some parts I'd been especially curious about. The anime is quite well done and recommended, if incomplete even with the OVAs added. Attractions include a couple of very beguiling side characters and a good bit of sartorial and art value. Also, it never descends into smarminess. Detractions include the utterly tedious fight scenes that seem to be a requirement of the form, and without which one could get through things in half the time and page count with no loss of information. The most complicated endgame I have ever seen finally clears the decks for the happy ending, which is all the male characters go off into the sunset together and they finally dump the girl who stays home. Granted, she spent half of the tale comatose, taking pensive heroining to a whole new level, just short of necrophilia. Jeez Louise, that is not in there at all. So they're all probably better off without each other. All the markers of the genre cranked up to 11, angsty backstories, wild melodramatic set pieces, dark secrets, and a peculiarly Japanese idific? I kind of liked it, actually. Ta L.
Ta.
I included that one because truly I was just like, your writing, incredible. The sign-off, incredible. And I found Lois again later on a different book. And you know what? Hell yeah, Lois. She mentions in this review that she got to Tsubasa because of Holic. And the reason I picked the whole suite of them is because she found both anime through her library on the shelves. Ha ha ha. Look at me tying it all back into why we're here. I have one 1-star review for Tsubasa. Meh. Still not a manga fan. Okay.
And you know what? They tried, but I wish that they hadn't put a number.
Exactly. Like, just leave that review. Meh, still not a manga fan.
Yeah, like
Why the 1 star? Did we need to?
here's my thing. So I made myself a spreadsheet, went viral a few years ago, where
Yes.
I like code the books that I read. I really need to spend a night just like updating it because I've not done it in a long time. But instead of rating books 1 through 5, I rate it from like dislike, like it's like love, like, indifferent, dislike, hate. And part of the reason I do that is because there are some things where it's like, I want to know for my own records that I did not like this book at all. That it's like 1 star, I hated it. But
Yes.
I also know that like this was not for me, or like I tried something and it didn't work. And I don't need to be like sabotaging the book's overall image because of that.
That's such a good point. I don't need to sabotage, I don't need to tank the reviews because it wasn't for me. Like, I can absolutely leave the written review of like, this book was not for me,
Yeah.
post. Like, and that can be it. But once you put the currency on it, once you put the star ranking, it absolutely changes the energy because you're saying that it's not for you and you're saying it's bad.
Right. And both
And then
can
that
be true.
both can be true, but that does confuse the market a little bit.
But if your whole thing is just like, I'm giving this 1 star because I didn't like it, because it like, I don't like the genre, I don't like this format, maybe don't do that.
Meh, still not a manga fan. I did remember to include Lois's other review, was also 4 stars of Holic. I had rewatched the anime recently, which led me to discover my local library had the complete run of the manga. Hoping that any number of things might be better explained therein, I plowed through the whole lot, volumes 1 through 19. Very enjoyable, one of my favorite animes. So just including that there, like, while Lois had some critique of Tsubasa, loved Holic. I also ended up watching the cross-connected complete Tsubasa anime series, 52 episodes. Thanks, Hennepin County Library. Shout out to you, Hennepin County Library. In the hopes that things would be explained. Some were, but not enough. And the one character I really wanted the angsty backstory episode for didn't get one. Sigh. I don't think I have the endurance to track down its manga at this point. Wikipedia tries to help, but it does seem an uphill struggle for this complex tale. Ta L. So, I mean, happy to see that not too long later, Lois did indeed go and read Tsubasa. And all in 2015. So it wasn't even like, I'm not going to, it wasn't like, okay, 2 years later, I'm finally doing it.
Yeah. No, she was like, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep exploring.
She really said, you know what? I can't leave this stone unturned.
So funny. Okay.
Yes.
My next book is one that I really, really love. And it is one that I think a lot of people have read. It's One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I think that this was like a perfect book. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. Okay.
Yeah.
Not everyone does. So my first review is...
Which is crazy. It's always interesting. Like, it will never not surprise me when I see it.
Listen, in my opinion, I have perfect book taste, and I'm shocked that anyone would hate this book. But I can hold grace,
Yeah, I'll leave space for the haters.
Yeah. Like Marie, who gave it 2 stars on Goodreads. Marie said, I was bored out of my mind reading this. Combine that with the fact that Elspeth read like a petulant 15-year-old and everyone searching for cards has serious Pokemon vibes, as many others have mentioned before, and I couldn't have been less invested. So many of the hater reviews talked about it being like Pokemon, and I was like, wow, that never occurred to me.
Huh.
Marie goes on. Also, how oblivious do all these people have to be to not notice her spacing out, having full-on conversations with the nightmare in her head all the time, sometimes even mid-conversation with other people. And you know what? She's right for that. That is... I'm like...
There are some things we let go a little bit.
But also, like, it kind of makes me think of Fleabag. How, like, no one ever notices her doing her fourth wall break until Hot Priest is like, where do you go? What are you doing? That's what I imagine. It's just like everyone just like ignoring Fleabag when she's like spaced out.
Absolutely.
Marie continues. I think the only thing that made me finish it was the fact that I was listening to the audiobook for most of it. I did enjoy the narrator. They gave some life to this story. Shout out to good narrators. I can kind of see why people like this. It's not as bad like some other overhyped books I've read, but it really wasn't for me. And I'm like, sorry, we're comparing this to the bad overhyped books?
Ooh.
Disagree.
Now,
Boo.
did Marie say shout out to good narrators? Or was
No,
that you? Okay.
I said shout out to good
I
narrators.
thought so, but I was like, I want to clarify on that.
That was me.
And you're correct. Marie, can we, are you okay? Can we help you? Like, I do love some of the critiques. Like, there's no way people are buying, like, missing the fourth wall breaks. The Pokemon. I don't know anything about this book, so Pokemon cards, whatever. Honestly, that activates my sleeper cell, so I'm in.
Yeah, maybe that's actually a good thing.
And what did she rate it? 2 stars.
2 stars, yes. My next 2 reviews are 4 stars because it is easier for me to obviously gravitate towards reviews that feel closer to how I feel.
I feel it.
They're still funny though. Okay. So first we have a 4-star review from Dr. Brew on Storygraph. They said, here's the thing. Rachel Gillig could fart on a Word document and I'd go insane for it. In this house, Bartholomew is queen, okay? But this audiobook narrator is extremely long ellipses. Horrendous. And I feel like give this book a higher rating if the narrator were anywhere half as good as the narrator for The Night and the Moth. Like, girl, why are we hooting and hollering like we got our degree at the Disney Channel School of Acting? I said what I said. Anyway, love my girl Elspeth, and we support women's rights and their wrongs. The Nightmare is sick as hell. I can't wait to read the next book, but I am praying by some miracle this lady is not the narrator.
Incredible.
So crazy dichotomy there between Marie and Dr. Brew.
Crazy dichotomy. And also, like, okay, would you take if you thought the book was 5-star, but you hated the narrator, would you take a star off?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
I would do 4.5 because I would be like.
Would you say in the review 4.5 rounded up, but it shows as 4 stars? Or would you do 5 stars and have it round down?
Well, so good, or Storygraph.
Oh, Storygraph actually allows you halves.
It does quarters.
A civilized world.
You can do 0.25, 0.5, 0.75.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will, because the narrator does impact my experience with the story. So
Absolutely.
sometimes I'll be like what I would do is I wouldn't have thought it was a 5-star book.
That makes sense.
I'll be 4.5. I probably would have liked it more if I had read it with my eyes.
Absolutely. Okay. Heard.
And vice versa. Sometimes just the words on the page are not flowing into my brain in the right way. And I'm
Yes.
probably would have liked this better if I'd listened to it.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, that as the not writing reviews or not putting star ratings down anywhere, it was hard for me to conceptualize what would I account a performance against the book? But you're so right. It would change my experience of it. So
yeah. All right. Last review from Indiram, 4-star Storygraph. A couple of the characters sound like they were named by a teen mom with a TikTok audience. And there's a reference to a Shakespeare quote that feels entirely out of place, as the setting is a fantasy world where Shakespeare presumably does not exist. A few things that felt amateurish, but overall enjoyable, fast read by an author whose interesting ideas were executed quite well. And I'm like,
okay.
Heard. Yeah, okay.
All right.
You know what? Elspeth does sound like a name that a TikTok teen mom might name their child.
I absolutely agree. You know what? I see it. I feel it. I also appreciated the kinetic energy of that review.
Yeah. It was a good time.
You know what? Love that. I'm on my last manga review here. This is for the Pokemon Adventures manga. This, again, is volume 1. So if they mention the whole series, I'll call it out. But otherwise, it may just be one book. Before I get into this review, I also had one in here that I'm going to cut for time. I'm just going to briefly mention. They said, manga isn't my thing. I'm still not really used to the format, and I don't know how much I'll continue reading, but I loved this book and gave it 5 stars. So I also think there is room to be I can appreciate and respect storytelling. So
yeah.
So I want that to be the takeaway for people before you hit post on that review. Just make sure where the biases lie. So this review is from Nikki Hawks, the obsessive bookseller. It's a 4-star review of Pokemon Adventures from May 2019. A simpler time. I think y'all can probably relate to this. I was minding my own business in Costco the other day when I came across box sets for the entire first 30 books in the Pokemon Adventure series, and I just had to have them. So I happily blew my grocery budget on them and went home. I've read maybe a handful of manga over the years, and although it's not a genre I'm well versed in, I liked everything I picked up. I think I feared diving in further for two reasons. One, I have enough to read as it is, and two, my book budget is already a problem. I'm also not super well versed in the Pokemon universe, aside from having a huge card collection from when I was a kid. I have all the original cool shit from the first 151 Pokemon, and I've watched the Indigo League and a few other series movies, and I still love playing Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2 and Pokemon Snap on Nintendo 64. This is a millennial. And that's it. I don't play the pocket video games. I choose time for other things over Pokemon Go because I would have had to catch them all to satisfy my completionist attitude. And I stopped collecting cards after the first generation of Pokemon came out. From my experience, this series is most in line with the TV series. And actually, the storylines are parallel so far, but they are told so differently that it's like reading a whole new series. The biggest improvement is the Pokemon interaction in the manga. I was super disappointed that Gotta Catch 'em All thing wasn't represented in the show, like hardly at all, WTF. So reading this feels like getting a second chance to satisfy my cravings. The more Pokemon caught, the better. Another difference is the grittiness. The TV show kind of bubblegummed it up with how much they portrayed Team Rocket and how they tamed down the interactions with Pokemon, much less violent. The manga takes itself much more seriously. There are still plenty of funny moments, but overall it's darker, and because of that, I'm liking it a lot more. Series status. I don't think I'll be doing reviews for every book in this series because there's not a ton of depth within each one, limited by the word count and general nature of the format. But I feel like I had to dramatically breathe there because this feels like a run-on sentence. But I'm definitely looking forward to working my way through them. I feel like a kid again. Recommendations. I love Pokemon and have always wanted a little more story than I got while watching the Indigo lead. The manga fits the bill perfectly. Since I'm a manga novice, I can't really compare it to the other manga series, so I'll satisfy by recommending it just to fellow Pokemon nerds like me.
You know what? That review kind of like made me want to read that.
Right? Like, honestly, it was just kind of, like I've read them and it is very different. And I think if you kind of like signed off a little bit and want a little more grit, it's a good way to do it. But I also just like to, this person is clearly sweet and having a good time. Like, hell yeah, Queen, tell me about your Pokemon card collection. Let's go play Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2. I'm ready. I also have one from Diana Bella, no star rating on it, which I was like, uh-oh. But the review. This book made me happy and I love Pokemon.
Cute. Love it.
Cute. Now, contrasted with this 1-star review from Goodreads from Taylor Kays, let's see, when was it? August 2015. Is this what Pokemon has become? Now, I want to be very clear. Chicken and the egg? Easy answer. This came first. So the concept of, is this what Pokemon has become? Do I have news for you? Yeah.
POV, you hate the source material.
POV, you hate the source material and didn't know it existed. I'm looking through because you know me, I got so excited while looking at reviews that I have way too many for every book. Okay, I'm going to do one more. This was from June 19th, 2026. So recent, from Chico, 2 stars. Was honestly a hard read. Red is really uninteresting protagonist, and the arcs and events all just feel like things happening just because a story has to have stuff happening in it, right? Well, duh, break down any story to its components, and even the best books of all time can sound boring. But I suppose in this case, it was just quite boring in my opinion. Well, IMO. I enjoyed the art, but felt the flow of the panels felt amateurish and the art itself charming but lacking. At least Pikachu's personality and design was super cute. Not bad, but nothing good either, IMO. This is, okay, I found why I included this one. Okay, so Storygraph, this was from Goodreads. So yes, this is from Goodreads. Goodreads, you can't do half stars, you can't do quarters, like Storygraph. Maybe I'll start starring over there. It's out of 5 stars. At the end of the description, 5.5 out of 10. Why? Why? Why did you include your own metric?
That's a really good question.
Also fractions. Like, what? 5.5 out of 10? Okay, well, like, you should simplify that anyway. Like,
you wanted it 2.25.
So 2.5, right? Right. 2.25 out of 5. Just write that, girl.
That's what that is.
Just write that. And that's why I included that. Have you ever seen reviews where you just go, why did you include your own?
Yes.
Okay. And how does that make you feel? Sometimes when I'm in like a Yelp review, that's the way gesturing dramatically for it to come to me. When I'm looking at like Yelp or, something similar to that for food or whatever, and they make their own scale, like if we're the Costco guys, 5 big booms, I laugh at that. I eat that up. But because there aren't really, you can't be like, this dish, 5 out of 5 stars, because that doesn't exist on Miss Yelp. But Goodreads is for the express purpose of number of stars out of 5.
Actually, an entire system that exists. Like the
built
whole point of
into
this
the
actually
platform.
is the system. Like,
right.
If you want a different system, go make a spreadsheet. That's what I did.
Crazy. Anyway, what's your next read?
Okay.
And that's the end of my manga.
My next book is one of my favorite books of all time. It is Unwind by Neil Shusterman. Talked about it a decent amount of times on this podcast.
You're mentioned in one of the books.
I am in one of the books, at least one of the books, maybe 2 of the books, in the acknowledgements, because I rode so hard for these books on Tumblr and Twitter back in the day.
And we love to see it.
And this one, I was like looking at reviews, and like a lot of the lower reviews are like, this is preposterous, this would never happen. Or it's like political or religious anger because the book is like dystopian, and like the prompt from which all this was born was like a religious/political conflict. So I was like, these aren't like fun. These aren't fun reviews.
Yeah.
So I went over to Storygraph and I filtered to reviews that have a written explanation but no stars. So these are starless reviews. They're very short and they all made me laugh. Okay. So the first one is from DR Rosales. It's not doctor, though. I'm not sure.
Some like doctor in the house? Okay.
Read this for school. I forgot how I felt about it.
Love that.
I'm like, are we just like bulking up our Storygraph history? Like,
fully.
Like, okay, thanks, Queen.
Absolutely. That was I'm going to start using this platform, but I better count everything I ever read.
Yeah.
At least they didn't leave a review. Like, there were no stars on it. And I appreciate that, as we've complained about this whole time.
Yeah. Like, this is exactly what I want.
Yep.
I'm_Basil said, I'm glad the teen dystopian genre died out. I hate to tell you this, I'm Basil. It didn't.
I'm sorry, Basil. You just no longer get told about it.
You just don't participate in that genre anymore. And that's fine.
You don't have to.
But check your facts. Facts don't care about your feelings.
Also, people clearly just don't understand dystopian. Like,
no, they really don't.
But I bet you're out here reading sci-fi, suspending your disbelief for that.
Okay. Lindsay Ag 23 said, this traumatized me as a kid and honestly still hits.
Okay. Where were the stars, Miss Lindsay?
None. No stars. Yeah.
That should have had some stars.
Like, she said 5 stars for still hits, 1 star for the trauma. They neutral out. No stars.
They neutralize 0 stars. Positive review.
And our last one is from Lucesbians.
Ooh.
Looking back on it, this premise is actually so freaky. What the hell?
Okay.
I love that we're looking back on it. Like, again, is this a scenario where someone was like fleshing out their Storygraph as they transferred over? Or were they just like sitting there one day and they're like, Unwind was freaky as hell. Let me put that on Storygraph.
Where someone just went like, wait a minute, I just had a recovered memory.
Like, I must go record this somewhere.
I'm hacking into the mainframe. So you mentioned Mockingjay earlier, and we had similar thoughts. I had initially gone the Hunger Games route, and then I went, no, I simply cannot because I don't know. I don't know what took me away from it, but what it did take me to was One You by Carolyn Kepnes.
Ooh.
Uh-huh. So this review is from July of 2018 from Matthew, 4 stars. I finished this book while recovering from surgery. I was medicated and kind of loopy. Considering how weird this book is, it's kind of perfect. Not for the faint of heart. This book is demented and twisted. You will feel uncomfortable that the words on these pages came from someone and were actually published. You will feel guilty for being enthralled by the madness and behavior of the narrator. You will start to question your own sanity as you realize you're not quite sure who you are cheering for. For lovers of twisted horror that touches on the potential insanity of the human psyche, this book is for you. If you read my review and then you read the book and you are grossed out, disturbed, or upset by the content, don't blame me. You can only blame you.
Ooh.
Okay, Matthew, get creative.
That was slick.
That was slick.
That was some riz in that review.
And there was absolutely some riz in that review. Here's one I included because it's a 5-star review from January of 2020. You know what? I'm going to read the review first and then tell you who wrote it.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
Mm-hmm. I don't normally review books when I've personally slept with the author. And this time is no different. I have never slept with Carolyn Kepnes. You should read You. See what I did there? No, that's because you can't read then.
Who wrote that?
You're not ready. Colleen Hoover.
What?
Uh-huh. Miss Verity herself. Uh-huh.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Colleen Hoover. Under picture of Colleen Hoover, author, Goodreads stamp, 110 books, 775,000 followers, 5-star review. I don't normally review books when I've personally slept with the author, and this time is no different. I have never slept with Carolyn Kepnes. You should read You. See what I did there? No? That's because you can't read then. January 7th, 2020.
That's really fucking funny.
It's really fucking funny.
That's actually one of the best things Colleen Hoover has written.
Ah. And you're correct.
Wow.
Now, how do I balance a 5-star from an author, a 1-star from an author? This is from Cindy Pham. 2 books and 132,000 followers on Goodreads. 1 star from November 6th, 2019. A ridiculous, nonsensical string of events paired with clunky writing, like if Catcher in the Rye were written as bad erotica. I truly don't understand the point of this book other than to be gimmicky. I just liked the if Catcher in the Rye were written as erotica. That got me pretty good.
That's crazy.
But I still can't get over Colleen Hoover. Okay, let's see. I have so many U's. Like reading the 5 stars from 2016, reading this was like watching a crossover episode between Criminal Minds and Law and Order SVU, told from the criminal's perspective. I loved every second of it.
Might I recommend for that person the show Hannibal or Dexter? Or I feel like there's so many things that we have from the killer's perspective.
That was from Hannah Azarang. But you're so right. It totally mirrors that. And I guess this will be my last review, a 2-star. It's from Justin. This was written in August of 2015. You wrote this book, and I saw it all over the place. You grabbed my attention with what looked like a cross between The Collector and American Psycho. I couldn't find your book anywhere, but I was able to land an interlibrary loan and get my hands on it. I rushed to the library, but they were closed. I walked away with my head down, disappointed. All I could think about was you and your book, which was called You and was written by you, you devil you. The next day, I got my hands on your book, and I read through the first 100 pages or so pretty quickly. It was amazing. It was fresh and hip and a little dark. This guy, Joe, that you created was great. I loved the beginning of your story. I loved how hip you were with your social commentary on books, authors, music, and especially social media. I was captivated by the story and where it was going. But then it got there. You took me halfway through this story with these messed up characters, and I was into it, man. I couldn't put it down, even though I was really starting to become distracted by all the graphic language and erotic stuff you were throwing into your story. Then you doubled down on that stuff, so when your story flattened out in the middle, it felt like you were just relying on these big girl words you kept throwing around and sexual situations. Neither of these things added a thing to the story you wanted to tell, but you kept forcing it down my throat. You distracted me from what had potential to be a great story. Halfway through your book, you really lost steam. Joe wasn't the same as he was at the beginning, and everything worked out too conveniently for him. I couldn't feel anything for Beck either, so I was left not caring about either of them or what happened to them, and then more vulgar crap and stupid scenes that just ruined it. Your book was like the first part of a roller coaster where you had me all in, slowly taking me up the incline, but then you dropped me too fast and the thrill was quickly gone. I can't recommend this book to anyone. I wanted to. I really wanted to. I wanted to like it more than I did. Why did you have to go and ruin everything? But your book, You, which was written by you, has made you very successful, and you have a huge fan base who is waiting for you to release the next book in the You series written by you. I added your next book to my to-be-read shelf, but I now have no desire to read it. Thank you.
That was
Incredible.
like world, like there were highs, there were lows. I never knew what was coming.
And fully written in like the
Joe's
You
voice
style. Yeah, fully
Yeah.
Joe Goldberg'd up.
That was crazy.
It was, right? I was like, I need to have that one in there.
Big props for that one. Okay, do we have time
Right?
for me to do one more?
Absolutely, we do. As long as you're good, it's all yours.
I decided that book that I talked about earlier that I really hated, that I wanted to go look at reviews for it, and I'm going to do some, okay?
Please.
So the book is The Most Unusual Haunting of Edgar Lovejoy by Roan Parrish. Joe, you may have remembered me like live posting on my Instagram stories about it.
I also remember us talking about it after finishing recording an episode. I indeed do.
Yes. So I went and I was looking up reviews. And first of all, I have to say, I was scrolling on Goodreads and I started reading this review. And it said, "Where were the ghosts? Where was the yearning? Why was it an insta-love? Absolutely did not need to be set in New Orleans if the author wasn't going to spend the time to truly understand the city." And I was like, wait, this review is popping off. I went and looked at who wrote it. It was me.
Oh my God, I love this review.
And my own biggest fan.
As you should be.
But anyways, okay, so I tried hard to be, fair to this book. So
I think that's objective.
I pulled some low ratings. I pulled some high ratings. We'll go all over the place, okay? So First Breaths on Storygraph gave it 2 stars and said, "Whoever described this book as cozy really needs to evaluate their life choices." And Shea Books on Storygraph also gave it 2 stars and said, "There was so much opportunity for literally anything interesting to happen, and it never did."
Ooh.
Which I agreed with. But then we have Prince Brat, who gave it 4 stars on
Brat
Storygraph.
Summer.
"I am a notorious cozy hater. I hate sunshine and hugs, jokes, promise, and want drama. I know for a fact that I would have hated every moment of my time with this book had I not been fresh out of a long and heavy doom cloud of a book. With that being said, I love this. I want to befriend everyone and put together a haunted house." So Prince Brat went outside of their usual reads and liked it.
And it was for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rar Ray, like RAWR, Rar.
I'm a dinosaur.
Gave it 4 stars on Storygraph, and that just gave me a chuckle. They just said, "Very gender," and the sparkle emoji. And I was like, yes, very gender.
You know what? That's how I know I'm getting old. I get it, but I don't know if I've ever felt it. I get it. And I love that for them.
And then I went over to Goodreads to see what they had to say over there. Because
and you found your haters.
There's haters. Like, people are more lengthy with what they're saying over on Goodreads. So I was like, let me find some other thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
First, we have M with 1 star who said, "Oh, gag me with a fucking spoon."
Perfect.
One of my favorite reviews I've ever seen.
Yep.
And then we're going to go up to Rita with 2 stars who said, oh, this one made me laugh. I liked the characters and I liked the growth in them as the story progressed. I don't like that so many of these characters smoked weed. The smell of it makes me nauseous, so just reading about it throws me out of the story. Honestly, any smoking in stories affects me that way. I hate it so much. I skip the sex scenes because TMI. Rita, I don't think you should have read this book.
Rita.
Rita, why are you reading queer romance
Rita.
based in New Orleans?
I think we have better options for you, honey.
Rita, go read Bridgerton.
Go read Bridgerton. Well, who knows? I don't know if there's sex in those books.
That's so true. It's
Rita might
probably
lose
TMI.
it, but they probably won't be smoking.
Rita, go read Dungeons and Dating.
I don't know.
It's YA, so the most it gets is maybe a kiss, definitely a handhold. There's no smoking, there's no drinking, there's just Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, phew.
So Rita, if you're listening.
Rita, if you're with us. Rita, are you with us?
Are you there, Rita? It's me, Meara.
Are you there, Rita? It's me, Book Lounge. I have Rex.
And then my last one is 3 stars from Carter Kalchik. I thought this was a very thoughtful review, which is why I want to end on it. In our book club discussion, I said that some books just are 3 stars, and some books are 3 stars that you desperately want it to be more. This book is in the latter category. There's so much here that does or should work, but somehow, amidst the many competing goals that Parrish had, it just doesn't all come together. I love the sentences that Parrish writes. They are often beautiful. She's particularly good at capturing a mood, but the story feels strangely adrift, with the characters and situations and plot never quite meshing in a satisfying way. And it doesn't help that the most interesting character, Poe, is a side character who shows up halfway through. Oddly enough, for just a middle-of-the-road book, it is extremely sexual, and I think most of the sex scenes are done quite well. Just one more strange quirk of this book. If you're interested in a cozy-ish structure, problems get solved almost immediately, that deals with pretty high-stress situations, anxiety, family stuff, childhood trauma, then you may really like this. Just wasn't particularly my cup of tea.
You know what? I feel good about that review. I think that is a great way to middle of the road critique because that's the thing. It was still 3 stars. And I think 3 star, if I'm going to put a star on a book, we're starting from 3. And I'm that's kind of baseline to me. So 3 to 3.5 is where I'm likely already coming from.
3's my indifferent. It was there.
Exactly. It was a book I finished, 3 stars. Yeah. So that was really thoughtful for something that you were still because at the end of the day, it was I see the potential for this to have more.
Yes. And you might like it if these things speak to you, but
yeah.
I do have some spoiler-free critiques. And I was that's a great review.
That was a great review. Can I ruin it with one final book?
Yes.
One final book that, probably ruins many a people's day. This is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. SK had this to say in October of 2024. It was a reread from September 30th to October 3rd. Quote, "I love you more than everything else in the world combined. Isn't that enough? Yes, it is enough. Enough for forever." Another quote, "Twilight again, another ending. No matter how perfect the day is, it always has to end." Okay. Every year, this series invites me in, and I can practically hear it saying to me, insert Edward's voice, "I'm the world's best predator, aren't I? As if you could outrun me, as if you could fight me off." And well, I don't fight it off. Jokes aside, this book is imperfect, but it still continues to be a masterpiece in the sense I never got bored or tired of it. Each time I read this series, it's like falling in love with Forks and the characters all over again. It's good to be nostalgic once in a while, isn't it? It's such a comfort read. And I love that for SK. From September 2014, also on Goodreads, this is Khan, the first of her name. 2 stars. Call me crazy, but Twilight wasn't that bad. Well, sure, it's bad, but it's not 1 star bad. The sequels were atrocious, sure, but the first book wasn't the worst crap I've read. Well, I suspect most of us hate about Twilight isn't the book itself, but the legion of rabid, terrifying fangirls, the ones debating on online forums about Team Edward versus Team Jacob, The ones who will argue that Twilight is the best book ever written. The ones who camp out at Twilight movie premieres 1 month before opening day. The ones who post YouTube videos of themselves sobbing their heart out when our Pats and K Stu broke up IRL. I hate the fans. I desperately hate the rabid fangirls. There were Z's. There aren't enough words to describe my loathing. Oh, I will not read that. Um, we'll say that says Twihards. The book itself wasn't that bad. I've read far worse before. I will read far worse in the future. I've read books that I wish were paper so I could fling it across the room during a fit of rage. I've read books with alpha douches who have made me use curse words that have made a Navy sailor blush. I've read books where the love interest is an abusive asshole who would think nothing of commenting on his love interest's tits or weight. And these books aren't even new adult. I've read books where the main character is a rampant fellow girl hater and a slut shamer, where the main character is so fucking dumb it makes my teeth hurts, where the main character seems to be doing her damnedest to remove herself from the human gene pool and is only by the grace of Deus ex fucking machina that she is saved. I've read books whose plot makes Game of Thrones seem simple and not in the wow, that's really complex kind of way, as it is the what the actual fuck were you smoking when you wrote this kind of way. So in that sense, Twilight really is not that bad. Sure, Bella is dumb and a Mary Sue, but the worst you can say about her is that she is completely colorless and bland, with the personality of a block of tofu. The worst you can say about Edward is that he's a weirdo stalker who really likes young girls despite his age, but man, watching a girl while she sleeps, he's been out-creeped by far worse men. So really, I mean it. You may hate Twilight with my blessing, but please don't believe it's the worst example of YA literature out there. It isn't by any stretch of the imagination.
I have a lot of feelings about that review.
Please.
First of all, why are we talking about a fan base in the review? Like, that just felt like misogynistic.
Uh-huh.
Especially, why are we talking about the fan base in 2014? Like, the fan base had kind of like quieted down by that point. Like,
right. I couldn't quite understand the date on this one because I was fully in high school while the movies were premiering. Maybe the last one, I don't remember when the last one
I think
premiered,
the last one came out
like,
in 2013 or 14. Like, Breaking Dawn Part 2 came out. I want to say I was in early college.
Okay,
But, like,
I either remember it being early college or like but like
the fandom settled down enough that at that point I had my mom get rid of my box full of Twilight memorabilia, which if I had waited like 3 years would have been worth money.
Absolutely.
Like it was definitely during like the downtime. That review in 2009, sure. Also, the way that they were talking about things gave me the ick.
Major ick. That also like parts of that review read like it came from 2009, 2010.
Yes.
Like I said, there was one that was like, oh, I won't say that. But so that's the same thing of like, that even felt more of like 2009 than anything else.
Yeah.
But it's...
I'm also...
Yeah.
I was confused by the
fandom
section.
thing is very strange.
I was confused by the section where they're like, I've read books at this, I've read books at this. Because I was like, are we patting ourselves on the back? Are we saying that like, I can read like very complicated stories? But then they were like, so it's not the worst.
It's definitely like I can read bad books. And it's like, what for? Who are you, who are you trying to impress? But because like, I love the sentiment of, please go ahead and hate Twilight with all your heart if you want to. But don't say it's the worst thing because there are worse things.
Yeah.
Who is that for? Because like, it could be like, the longtime listeners know we did a retrospective where I, for the first time, read all of the Twilight books. It was, I wouldn't say a dark time, but I had a paperback copy of Twilight that I got from Borders in the $5 section when I was a tween when it came out because, and no one was talking about it yet. My hipster cred stays strong. It was on the bargain bin because it hadn't blown up anywhere and I never got through it. I did not successfully get through any of the books until I was an adult.
Yeah.
And that was because it was a fun time with friends. Do I love the movies? Absolutely. They're camp. They're a delight. They do welcome me, to the earlier reviewer, they do welcome me in once a year to a delightful time. I don't know if I'd reread the books, but I'm not mad I read them.
But let me tell you, I bet
But I
that if
wouldn't
you
tell
found
other people
yourself
to go read them.
if you found yourself in Seattle, would you go off to Forks, Washington and do the little self-guided tour? I bet you would.
Meara, you better believe if I'm in Seattle, I'm going to Forks.
Good. I
Like,
recommend it. I
I
also recommend packing your own lunch.
that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I've been to enough small towns in Seattle where I know that to just be good general advice.
But let me tell you, I went to Forks and I sat down and I went, oh, I get why Bella wanted to kill herself. And that gave me
Yeah.
a big perspective on the books.
Yeah. No,
Stephanie Meyer really did her big one with that setting.
but honestly, and like I don't hate Twilight. Honestly, I love Twilight because I think a franchise is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And from living through it at the age that was being targeted, like for all of it, I have so many reasons to love it. As I could just as equally have reasons to be a hater. And I don't have reasons to be a hater because I have a great time. I'm happy every time I see that cast on a panel somewhere being ridiculous. I went to a Twilight themed drag show. I watched a bunch of drag queens do the baseball scene. Like,
Oh, I love that.
absolutely. But Allie, 2 stars in 2025. A teenage girl with a personality so bland it might be of interest to science falls in love with the odd, quiet kid in her school who turns out to be a vampire, but that's the Pacific Northwest for you. His family isn't like other vampires because they only drink animal blood and they date each other. The early aughts taking a surprisingly casual stance on incestuous overtones in YA books. There's another boy who loves her and he has abs. Edward adores Bella with so much passion, one must assume that while he was alive, his favorite meal was a mayonnaise sandwich. If your boyfriend tells you that he breaks into your house to watch you sleep, I'm going to tell you to do something I never suggest to anyone. Call the cops. Team Edward or Team Jacob? Neither are right, as the only team worth being on is Team Mustache Dad. Correct. And on 3/13/2025, they did a reread. You can't help who you love, be it a mediocre minor league player, your adopted sister, or the baby giraffe who tripped her way to Forks with nothing but the Delia's clothes on her back and a blank stare. One thing will never change, though. Charlie, I love you.
I do have a magnet on my fridge that is Charlie in a heart and it says daddy. So,
And that is perfection. I'm only going to hurt you with one more review. This is from Human, 1 star, March 2020. Asterisk, vomits aggressively, asterisk. That's the review, but I do want to include the tags that they
Okay.
put because there are more tags than review. Annoying characters, better repurposed as kindling, drama to rival my mother's soaps, love webs, paranormal. The hype is strong with this one. The hype was a lie. You know what? Holding it down in 2020.
I will say, respect your elders.
Respect your elders.
Like, this was like part of the ground being broken.
Mm-hmm.
We have to, like,
there are so many things that could not be running. Honestly, hot take, Twilight walked so Euphoria could run.
oh,
Pretty Little Liars walked so
yes.
Euphoria could run. Like,
Yeah.
respect the ancient texts. I'm so
Yes.
sorry. Like, there are things that exist today only because your elders, being us 30-year-olds,
Right.
uplifted the hell out of this mess.
People love to like shit on certain books. And I'm like, you realize that this like invented this genre that you love, right? Like full genres would not exist without some books like this.
Absolutely. Like, am I sometimes a Jane Austen hater? Maybe. That's just because I have some unresolved issues with a professor back in college. Do I feel differently now as a well-adjusted therapized adult? Definitely. But I also was never ignorant enough to go like, that inspired that, inspired that. I love Clueless. I know what Emma's about. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, sometimes you just got like, again, I may have been a hater. Not only have I reformed, but no one needed to see 1-star reviews of Northanger Abbey from me.
Exactly. I did almost do Fahrenheit 451 for this, but I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't do any books that people had to read for school because that would probably like really hurt the reviews.
Absolutely. Because like even the one that you had that had 0 stars, I was like impressed that a person read it for school, seemed indifferent, if not angry about it, and gave it like not a star rating. So
Yeah.
congrats to that person. Meara, thank you for doing your favorite pastime with me. I hope you had a lovely time.
I had so much fun. I laughed out loud when I found some of these reviews, and I laughed out loud reading them again. And when I listen back to this episode, I'll probably laugh out loud a third time.
And I'm going to keep on laughing. Listeners, if you liked this episode and you want me and Meara to do it again, please leave it in the comments down below. Send me an email, bookloungebylibby@overdrive.com. Recommend the books you want us to look up. Give me a list of some of your favorites. I will happily be your review guide. Meara can pick whatever book she wants. I will fully do it again with just what you want to hear reviews of. We'll dig, deep dive, whatever.
Also, if people just want to send us insane reviews that they see and just have us cold read them.
Please. Love that as well. Yes. Cold reviews. Flood my inbox, please, with cold reviews of books, and we will read them. bookloungebylibby@overdrive.com. Meara, thank you. And y'all, thank you so much for joining us today. And happy reading. You can sample and borrow the books from today's episode in the Libby app, or if you're a librarian, find them for purchase in OverDrive Marketplace. Book Lounge by Libby is a proud Evergreen Podcast signature program. Explore more amazing shows at evergreenpodcasts.com. This podcast is produced and recorded by me, Joe Skelly, with editing by Andrew Alonso. Our theme music is High Five by Rex Banner, used with permission. Book Lounge by Libby is presented by the Libby app. Learn more at libbylife.com/booklounge.